share an email that's come in, and this weather is socking in. It's been storming all over the place. Once I get home, I got a moose I gotta butcher up. Here comes this storm is coming, man. A big one's coming. Well, I'm gonna I'll see what I got here. I'm gonna share one, and then I got some cameras I want to get to and check. And I'm going to try to get at least 15 emails shared with you and loaded onto the YouTube channel as fast as I can. And we'll see if they can get them to come up every couple days, get caught up on helping people and sharing their experiences with all of you, so it can help you with what you're possibly dealing with where you live, hunt, fish, or hike. Okay? Again, I don't know what this is about, but here we go. Sasquatch ghost followed me home. In the summer 2001, I was with a group. They experienced a strange encounter on Jedediah Island in coastal BC. The encounter carried on to my downtown condo. It's not a typical Sasquatch encounter. I think many people will be challenged by my story. I hope someday it'll make sense when more is known about this topic. We saw a birthday campout. In August 2001, we stayed overnight in a small sailboat at Jedediah Island, which is only accessible by private boat. There's no ferry service that goes there. The afternoon we arrived, two of us, Don and myself, paddled the rowboat to shore to explore the island. Darcy chose to stay behind to cook and just to be alone for a while on the boat. Jedediah Island was donated to the provincial park system and has an abandoned farm. In 2001, there were still some goats and a friendly horse left behind from when the island was a working farm and an apple orchard. The only apples left on the apple trees were way up on the highest branches, far beyond our reach. When we shook the apple trees, the horse, who was following us around, quickly gobbled up the apples that fell to the ground. Poor guy, what a shitty thing to do to a horse. Leave him there. We discussed having a creepy feeling while we looked into the windows of the locked tool shed in the abandoned farmhouse. At the time, I was skeptical about having feelings about things, but had to acknowledge the creepy feeling. We saw a man and about 5 boys camping on the beach of Home Bay on the east side of the island. We stopped by to say hello. I think the man said they were having a birthday campout. The man asked us if we heard any weird noises the night before. I explained we just arrived. I thought again about the creepy feelings we both had earlier. The man said he was asleep when the boys heard weird sounds in the night. His demeanor seemed to imply the young boys were just spooked about sleeping in the outdoors. He pointed at one of the boys and said, "This one even thinks he saw something." The boy he pointed toward was sitting on a lawn chair, just staring at the ground, looking really tired and really upset. The boy probably hadn't slept a wink. The man said the boy claimed to have seen something like an ape. As he said the words "something like an ape," the boy's eyes glazed over as if he was seeing it all over again in his imagination. The kid was obviously really upset by something. I'm certain all 3 of us adults instantly knew what something like an ape meant before none of us acknowledged it to each other. Over the years, I often wondered whatever happened to that poor stressed-out kid. Those boys are grown adults now. If they're hearing my story right now, I hope this helps to confirm to them what happened back then was real. I hope maybe one of them will submit an account of their own experience from that weekend. Anyway, we had to walk through the woods to get back to the boat while there was still daylight. The man became concerned and told us that the woods was the direction where the weird noise were coming from the previous night. It started to seem like he took the boys' claim seriously than he first let on. We just walked through these woods only an hour or 2 earlier with no problems. I wasn't concerned in the least to walk back. Some of the kids seemed shocked that we were nonchalantly walking straight into the woods that contained all their fears. I thought that made me seem cool and badass. Rock throwing and the thud. As we walked back down the path, I kept looking up into the trees because something was rustling the branches way up there. I thought it was squirrels jumping branch to branch, but I'm not sure if I actually saw any squirrels. Don stopped walking and said in a serious voice, "Okay, a rock just hit me in the back. It was not my imagination." I think I heard a rock swish through some brush nearby to my right. We kept on walking down the path. A few minutes later, there was something rustling in the branches way up high in the treetops again. This time I was certain it was a rock, knocking through the branches and the tops of the trees. The rock came from behind us and made a long, wide arc way up high. I felt the rock was thrown through the trees to distract us. It must have been a fairly large, heavy rock thrown with considerable force as it hit many branches of a few different trees and just kept on going. I was sort of amused. I thought someone might be effing with us. To our right, I heard the slow crackling sound of a really thick piece of wood being slowly snapped in half. I had the feeling a wild animal was making this sound to let us know we were in their territory. To my left, I also heard a sound that was like two big rocks getting smashed together and then crumbling into a pile of rubble. I heard a couple of times. I tried to think what could make such a sound. A picture flashed in my mind of two big hands smashing two rocks together and then crumbling the rocks into little pieces. It seemed like every few minutes we heard something. I started feeling disoriented. My head was swiveling, trying to see if the sounds I heard were rocks or squirrels or something else. It was unnerving to be walking down that path, hearing things all around us. I tried to tell myself the forest was just noisy. We city people don't really know how noisy the forest is supposed to be or what noise to expect. I couldn't shake the weird feeling that someone was making noises to try to scare us, but I didn't feel like we were really in any danger. If they wanted to hurt us, they could have hurt us in numerous ways already. I'm not going to be afraid of some noises, I thought to myself, trying to keep myself safely in denial. I had a feeling of recklessness from ignoring all these signs. We needed to keep walking because we were already more than halfway back to the boat. Turning back meant we'd be walking toward the direction the rocks were coming from, which seemed like a bad idea. We walked only a little further. Then we heard an unmistakable, deep-sounding, huge thud on the ground. It sounded incredibly big and heavy. It could have been a giant boulder about the size of a refrigerator smashing into the ground. It made the ground feel hollow under my feet. I actually felt the thud under my feet as I heard it with my ears. I instantly realized there was a softer thud just minutes prior, which came from much further away and less noticeable. Whatever made those two thuds was moving closer, and it definitely got my attention the second time. "Okay, what was that?" Dawn said, referring to the huge, deep thud. I replied, "I don't know what it was, but I know what it means." "What does it mean?" Dawn asked. "It means get the F out of my forest." I began to experience a wave of panic through my boiling blood that I struggled to contain. At this point, I kept my eyes looking in front of me, looking down the path. I felt that if I were to pivot my head to one side or the other, I would probably have seen it. I didn't want to see it. I knew for sure what was out there now because that kid saw something like an ape the previous night. I was certain if I turned my head and saw a giant Sasquatch, I would have started to freak out in mad panic. I didn't want to panic. I just wanted to just calmly walk down the path and get back to the boat. As we got closer to the end of the path, I could barely keep a calm walking pace. As we got closer to the end of the path, I could barely keep a calm walking pace. I found myself thinking loudly in my brain, "We're just passing through. We're not doing any harm. We'll be out of here in just a minute. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hurt anything." Thinking those words in my mind helped to calm me. I also felt maybe the creature would get my vibe if I continued to say reassuring things in my mind. I don't know what made me think it would get my vibe. I just thought I could help. Finally, we went to the clearing where the muddy beach was. We scrambled to push the rowboat back into the water and get the F out of there. As we paddled away from the muddy beach, my panic quickly subsided. Animals can't get us when we're on the water, I thought. Darcy was on the sailboat quietly cooking, totally unaware of what just happened to us during our walk back to the boat. As the sun set, we ate, drank, and completely ignored what we had just experienced in the woods, but I felt a lot better. Glowing underwater snake and ghost Sasquatches. As the night faded, I became fascinated with the bioluminescence in the water off Jedediah Island. I never even knew bioluminescence existed. I could have spent hours splashing in the water to watch the bioluminescence glow with each splash. Don was flicking water drops in his fingers, creating glowing circles in the water where the drops landed. The water in the air felt really still, almost as if it were indoors. We got quiet for a moment, and then I heard Don say, "Something's happening." Just then, the tiny dots of glowing bioluminescence in the water started to get sucked down towards a spot about 6 feet deep in the water. It was as if they were being pulled by a magnet. They sped up as they got closer to the point of attraction, then froze in place. The dots of the glowing bioluminescence took the shape of a stick about 4 feet long. Some dots of glowing bioluminescence spun quickly around the stick until they got stuck to the side of it. The glowing stick started to slowly sway side to side, curving its length in an S shape as though it was a snake swimming under the water. The snake was just swimming more or less in place just below the edge of the boat. The snake was at least 1.5 to 2 inches thick and about 4 to 5 feet long. I was sure I was not looking at a rope because the boat was tethered to the trees on either side of the cove. We didn't use an anchor that night. Whatever that glowing underwater snake thing was, it was mesmerizing to watch it swaying to and fro. Dawn tapped my arm, subtly, nodded towards the west side of the cove, and whispered, "There is something watching us, and I need to be careful." As Dawn said this, a picture flashed in my mind of a primitive monster's face in front of a yellow background. Then I experienced a calm, almost euphoric feeling wash right through me in a strange way that I don't think I've ever experienced before or since. When Dawn mentioned seeing something in the shadows watching us, I felt like I wanted to say to him, "I already know it's there." But I didn't say it because I didn't actually already know it was there. I just felt like I already knew it was there, without actually knowing it was there. How can I be aware of something without knowing I'm aware of it? I can't answer that, but I'll try to explain something about that later. I should mention none of us were into drugs, but I did have quite a few drinks. Back then I could handle my own liquor very well. And we already discussed that. Liquor doesn't make you see weird shit. Okay? It might make some people seem more sexier than they actually are, but it doesn't make you see weird shit. Part of me still wanted to be skeptical. Part of me still wanted to be skeptical. I slowly turned my head the direction Dawn was gesturing toward. I saw nothing but pitch black darkness. Maybe my night vision is as good as others. Anyway, I was too distracted by the glowing underwater snake. Dawn whispered to me again, "It's going to try to pull you into the water." As I leaned over the edge of the boat to watch the glowing underwater snake, Dawn held onto the belt loop on the back of my pants with genuine concern that I would get pulled into the water. I wasn't sure if Dawn was talking about the glowing underwater snake or whatever he was seeing in the shadows. Or maybe this was the setup for a prank in which they pushed me into the water. Darcy asked in a sarcastic tone, "Okay, what are you guys yammering on about?" Dawn quietly explained to Darcy that something was standing in the water watching us and was going to try to pull me in. Darcy was skeptical for only a moment, then rushed into the cabin of the boat and reemerged with a flashlight. The flashlight didn't work. Again, I tried to look in the direction Dawn was gesturing toward, and all I saw was complete blackness. They both could see something standing in the water watching us, but I couldn't see it. I didn't doubt them, but I couldn't see it myself. It crossed my mind again that they could be pranking me. Darcy and Dawn both commented on the huge size of the creature and how it stood perfectly still. Darcy mentioned that maybe it just might be a weird shadow because it's completely motionless. I continued to watch the glowing underwater snake with a feeling of calmness, while the other two seemed agitated and bewildered by the creature they were seeing in the dark. After a couple of minutes, they both seemed to agree that the creature was gone. They didn't say it walked away, nor did they say it hear any splashes in the water as it left. It was just gone. I still had a lingering feeling of calmness, and I could sense the relief that the creature was gone. "There's more of them over there," Dawn exclaimed, pointing toward the direction of the muddy beach. Dawn grabbed the flashlight out of Darcy's hand and began shaking it, causing the batteries inside to rattle. I felt so calm. I thought maybe Dawn was having some kind of panic attack and imagining things. I looked forward to the muddy beach. I looked towards the muddy beach. For a few seconds, I thought I saw 4 or 5 huge dark silhouettes standing in the water, halfway between the sailboat and the muddy beach. They were standing perfectly still, chest deep in the water, facing us, not moving, just staring at us. I could not make out any features, but the heads and shoulders looked way bigger than a regular human. I blinked and squinted my eyes. Then I thought I saw only one of the 2 silhouettes, not 5. Again I squinted. Now I was pretty sure there was nothing there and it was all my imagination, or my eyes were playing tricks on me in the pitch black dark at night. I didn't even tell the other 2 what I saw because I wasn't 100% sure that I saw it. Suddenly the flashlight started working. Dawn directed the beam across the water toward the muddy beach. Nothing was there. We were all as confused as much as we were relieved to see nothing there. Darcy questioned why Dawn was pointing the flash at the muddy beach. Dawn said the creatures were standing on the beach. Darcy disagreed and said the creatures were in the water in front of the muddy beach. It seemed Darcy and I both saw them in the water, while Dawn saw them on the muddy beach. We tried to confirm what each of us saw. I told them I didn't actually see the creatures they saw. I told them I saw a glowing underwater snake. They looked at me like I was crazy. Imagine the irony that they saw a Sasquatch disappear into thin air, and I was the crazy one for claiming to see a glowing underwater snake. The other 2 really did not see the glowing underwater snake. I guess when Don said, "Something is happening," just as the snake appeared, he must have been talking about something else. It was all very confusing. We were actually confused. Were we actually experiencing some kind of shared hysteria? If there were huge flesh and blood creatures standing in the water, I'm sure the bioluminescence in the water would have been given away their location. There would also have been some splashing sounds that moved through the water. Now, it's easy to dismiss something you thought you saw in the dark, but what about those kids we heard strange sounds the previous night and saw something like an ape? Also, it's pretty hard to ignore that huge thud we heard in the woods that shook the ground. When you put it all together, it really seemed like something very strange was going on. We sat there in the dark quietly for a long time before deciding nothing else was going to happen. The night air continued to feel as still as though we were indoors. We each took a spot in the cabin of the boat and fell asleep. At first light of day, Darcy got up to prepare the boat to sail. Darcy noticed a small arrangement of pebbles on the edge of the boat. It looked like someone carefully arranged the pebbles into a design. None of us took credit for the arranging the pebbles on the ledge of the boat, nor were there any places nearby to collect the pebbles. That was kind of creepy. The tapping sound and moving bottle. In the days and weeks after I got home from the sailing trip, I started to hear light tapping sounds in my downtown condo. It was like the sound your fingernail makes when tapping on the table. It seemed like it was coming from the inside walls of the bathroom. I thought maybe it was just the pipes or wind blowing through the old walls, maybe even mice. I decided just to ignore it. One time the tapping started when my dad was saying overnight, "We're going to watch the 2001 Molson Indy over by Science World in the morning." The tapping sounds gave him the heebie-jeebies, which is a reaction I never expected from him. He was a serious and confident older man. His acknowledgement of the tapping sounds meant it wasn't just my imagination. One evening while I was just starting to relax after a long day, I was startled to hear a sudden loud clang, followed by another loud clang a second later. I nearly jumped right to my feet. It came from the bathroom, but I was the only one there. I burst into the bathroom, flipped on the light. To my surprise and to my relief, there was nothing in there. I noticed 2 bottles of shampoo laying on the bottom of the bathtub. Those things must have fallen somehow. It's a metal bathtub, so when things fall into it, it makes a really loud noise. I left those shampoo bottles at the bottom of the tub and went back to doze off. Over the next several weeks, shampoo bottles fell into the bathtub by themselves so often I didn't even go to check it anymore. The bottles only fell when I was home. Not once did I come home and find the bottles already had fallen over. It always waited till I was at home, and usually when I was relaxing. It's sort of like an immature person trying to annoy me. This seemed like mischievous and attention-seeking behavior I wasn't too concerned about. There was plenty else going on to be concerned about in those days. The dot-com bubble first was in full effect. The economy was tanking. 9/11 happened, and someone was mailing envelopes filled with anthrax to people. It's just a crazy time. One weekend morning, the shampoo bottle fell over into the tub right behind my back while I was brushing my teeth. This time I decided to take a closer look. I picked up the shampoo bottle, examined the bottom of it, placed it on the side of the bathtub, and waited a few seconds. To my surprise, the shampoo bottle slid across the ledge of the bathtub on its own right in front of my eyes. I kid you not. It moved about 10 centimeters and stopped just shy of falling off the ledge of the bathtub again. Seeing the bottle move amused me more than it surprised me. I picked up the bottle, placed it down 2 more times, and watched it move by itself 2 more times. It was as if we were playing a little game. It moved less distance each time. The 3rd time, it barely moved at all. I thought whatever's moving it must have run out of strength. If it had limited strength, then pushing 2 things into the metal bathtub was the noisiest thing it could do with the limited strength it had. This made it seem somewhat strategic in its behavior. One evening when the shampoo bottle fell in the tub, I just shouted, "Stop effing doing that." That was the last time the Poltergeist ever made his presence known to me. Until all this happened to me, I was always thought ghost stories were stupid and childish entertainment. I was skeptical of most things. My mantra was that people used to think comets and volcanoes were signs from the spirit world, and now we know what these things are. It wasn't until many, many years later that I started to realize the strange experience I had at Jedediah Island and the poltergeist in my home afterwards were tied together somehow. Also, my years later, I started to have a vague recollection of a conversation from that night of the sailboat where someone was saying something like, I'm not giving you the ghost is already there. I'm just allowing the ghost. It won't harm you, but it might annoy you. Then we both laughed. The part where we laughed was the part that I remember the most about the conversation. I think it also said I can make the ghost go away any time, but I should try not to because it could be a learning experience for me. Then I agreed to have the ghost. I honestly think that night in the sailboat, someone or something entered my mind and had a conversation with me in the deep mind without my awareness that it was going on. During this conversation, they got my permission to have that ghost in my home. Thinking back on that night in the sailboat, there were definitely moments when I might have been under some kind of influence. All that stuff happened 20 years ago. Since then, I haven't had any other poltergeists or mysterious strange events or dry hallucinations or any signs of mental illness. Everything has been fairly normal ever since. All that shit happened for real and I'm not crazy. After many years of thinking about it, this is what I learned from that experience. There is an invisible world all around us, and there are beings in that invisible world that can see us in our world. Sasquatches have access to that invisible world, and Sasquatches can also have access to our minds without us even knowing it. They can make us feel calm, they can make us feel panic, they can put pictures in our minds. They can even blank themselves out of our minds so we don't even see them standing in front of us. Sorry for dragging this out. I want to say everything. I have nothing left to add to our public discussion at this topic. Alex. All right, Alex. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for those experiences. There's many points you brought up. There's many points you brought up in those experiences that will definitely ring familiar with myself and literally thousands of other people here. Do I question one thing happened to you as did it or did it not? I think we both know the answers that it did, obviously. And I think due to the popularity of this topic on my YouTube channel, there's probably a really good chance that one of those people that have frequented Jedediah Island, possibly that same weekend you guys did, there's probably a really good chance they're listening to me speak right now on this video, on the channel, this moment. And if any of you are, and if you feel you want to add to this in any way, you can go ahead and email it to me, share my story at howtohunt.com or tell my story at howtohunt.com. We'll get to it and just title it Jedediah Island, all right? And we'll add to it. And there you go. There's another one. That's a humdinger of a story too, especially with the things going on at home. You know, I'm not looking for ghost stories to be emailed into me. I'm just not. This one particular topic is big enough as it is, comboed up with all my other outdoor topics. So we'll make that clear now. But there is numerous people, including Scott Carpenter and other people, who are very, very, very familiar with the Sasquatch topic, and as well having things happen at their home after becoming aware of them, and after they become aware that you are aware of them. Multiple things continue to go on. It's just the way it is, man. I mean, look what's going on with me. I don't look for these things intentionally, but I seem to have 2 or 3 experiences every year during hunting season in the springtime or whenever. Just every time, not every time, but quite often to numerous places that I frequent in the woods, shit goes down. Do I encourage it? Nope. Is me talking about it in places where it happens encouraging it? Possibly. Whatever. If my life was in danger, it would have been ended a long time ago by these things. Who's to say I'm not going to end up coiling out of a grizzly bear's butthole eventually anyway, right? But anyway, there you go. It's freezing cold. I got to get my button gear. I got some trail cameras I want to grab and swap out batteries and SD cards, and I got a lot of stuff to get going on. And I really, really, really want to get a lot more of these emails shared with all of you as soon as I can. And once again, Alex, thanks for emailing that into me, all of us. And hopefully it possibly helped you to hear it read out loud to the world. And I guess we'll just keep on keeping on. And there you go. Be safe out there, and I will be posting up more shortly.